Alright, real talk. You've heard the words climate change probably like 1,000 times at this point. In class, on the news, from that one uncle at Thanksgiving who won't stop. And every single time you probably think, yeah, I know it's bad, whatever. But do you actually know why it's bad? Like, do you actually know what's coming? Nah, you don't. And that's okay, because that's literally what I'm here for. My name is Virat, and today we're answering the question, why should we worry about climate change, and what should we do about it? By the end of this video, you'll know what climate change actually is, why it's directly threatening your health, your city, your wallet, and your mental state, and what we can actually do to stop it. Let's get into it. First things first, what is climate change? Climate change refers to a shift in typical weather patterns in a certain region, or a shift in the Earth's climate as a whole. Basically, it's when the weather your area is supposed to have starts acting completely different. Think less, oh, it rained a bit more than usual, and more, bro, why is it 37 degrees in May? And before you say, well, that's just weather. No. Weather changes within hours. Climate change takes millions of years to happen naturally. The key word there is naturally, because what we're experiencing right now, that's not natural. That's us. And it's not just a global thing floating out there in the abstract, it's happening here. Cities like Toronto, Hamilton, Oshawa, Halifax, Montreal, and Calgary are ranked as some of the least climate resilient cities in Canada, meaning they have the highest chances of future water stress, extreme heat, hurricanes, and wildfire risks. Yeah, Toronto. The city you're probably from. That Toronto. So, why is Canada specifically dealing with this? The root cause of climate change in Canada comes down to greenhouse gas emissions, mainly from burning fossil fuels, transportation, and industrial processes. But here's the thing, the real root cause is us, humans. We encourage these activities for industrial purposes and for money, to build a better country, in quotes. And here's where it gets spicy. Agriculture plays a huge role too. Over 25% of greenhouse gas emissions globally come from agricultural activities. Things like deforestation, pesticide use, rice paddies, all of it. Agriculture is also the single biggest producer of methane and nitrous oxide, two of the most aggressive greenhouse gases on the planet. These two visuals break down exactly how climate change forces like methane, carbon dioxide, and ozone impact our air quality, and what the downstream effects look like on human health. The second one especially shows how it all connects, from emissions to atmosphere to us. And the carbon dioxide situation, it's already 48% above regular atmospheric levels. That's not a small number. That's massive. Okay, main idea number one. Climate change and the air pollution it causes can seriously wreck your physical health. And I don't mean, oh, you might sneeze more. I mean lung disease, heart disease, cancer, dying before you're supposed to. Air pollutants, specifically fine particulate matter, ground level ozone, and nitrogen dioxide, cause approximately 15,300 premature deaths in Canada every single year, with an economic cost of $114 billion. That's not a typo. These pollutants come from two main sources, fossil fuel combustion, which is also the primary source of greenhouse gases, and wildfires. And about wildfires. Areas burned by wildfires in Canada have been doubling between the 1970s and the 2000s. Western Canada saw the biggest increase in both number of fires and area burned from 1959 to 2015. These fires don't just destroy forests, they release smoke in what scientists call plumes, giant toxic clouds that carry fine particulate matter deep into your lungs. Short-term exposure to this air pollution is estimated to cause between 54 and 240 premature deaths per year. Long-term exposure, between 570 and 2,500 premature deaths per year. And it's not just outdoors either. Climate change affects indoor air quality when outdoor pollutants secretly enter buildings, or when mold forms after floods. Even airborne allergens like pollen are getting worse, which hits people with asthma and allergies especially hard. The bottom line, breathing the air in 2050 might genuinely be a health hazard if we don't do something now. Oh, and by the way, seniors, children, certain racial groups, low-income individuals, people with pre-existing conditions, and indigenous peoples face disproportionately higher health impacts. Climate change doesn't hit everyone equally, it hits the most vulnerable the hardest. Now let's talk patterns and trends, because this is where it gets really real. Climate change has drastically increased global temperatures over the past 2 centuries. Glaciers are shrinking, extreme weather events are becoming more common, and data analysts have found a clear relationship. The more fossil fuels we burn, the more carbon dioxide enters the atmosphere, and the higher global temperatures spike. Here's a local example, right here in Brampton. Between May 17th and May 19th of 2026, just a month ago, temperatures hit a low of around 20 degrees Celsius and a high of 37 degrees Celsius. The weeks before that, the average was a low about 3 degrees Celsius and a high of 13 degrees Celsius. Let that sink in. Now, to be fair, this kind of temperature jump is somewhat normal in late spring as we transitioned into summer. But the fact that we're seeing a potential summer this hot, That directly correlates with the rising carbon trend. And if this becomes the average summer climate, here's the pattern that emerges. It gets hot, wildfires and heat waves start, forest fires break out, people have heat strokes, emergency vehicles flood the roads, more fuel burned, more carbon dioxide released, it gets even hotter. It's a cycle, a very bad one. Understanding these patterns is what allows scientists, governments, and regular people to figure out what's actually driving climate change and what our next steps need to be. Main idea number 2. Climate change causes severe weather events, and those events are getting worse. We're talking heat waves, storms, droughts, floods, and forest fires, not as separate things, as a package deal. Prolonged exposure to extreme heat affects cardiovascular health and increases mortality, especially for the elderly. There's also something called the urban heat island effect, where cities run significantly hotter than surrounding rural or suburban areas, making early death rates in urban areas higher. But it gets worse. These heat waves are melting glaciers. This map shows the real-world impacts of climate change across Canadian provinces, and one of the most critical issues it highlights is glacial melt, especially in the Arctic. Glaciers form in mountain hollows where snow piles up and compresses into ice over centuries. They feed rivers. Those rivers support marine life. That marine life feeds us. Simple chain. Scientists say we have roughly 20 years before water levels begin dropping sharply due to glacier scarcity. By the year 2100, 60 to 80% of ice is expected to be lost in British Columbia and Alberta. When glaciers disappear, dryness follows. Droughts affect cardiovascular and respiratory health, spread allergens and disease through the wind, and cause crop failure, which tanks food prices, food security, and the mental health of farmers. Rainstorms can cause power outages, leading to injuries and accidents. Storms carry pollen, viruses, and bacteria, triggering asthma and disease outbreaks. One specific bacteria, Legionella, can spread through airborne particles during storms and cause a severe lung infection called legionellosis. Floods cause drowning, hypothermia, electrocution, skin and gastrointestinal diseases, and infrastructure collapse. And flooded homes become hotboxes of mold, fungi, and bacteria. If the power goes out and someone tries to use a barbecue or camp stove indoors, carbon monoxide poisoning. It's a whole thing. Oh, and melting permafrost, because why not add to the list? Permafrost covers 40% of Canada's landmass, but by 2090, it's expected to decrease by 16 to 20%. And as it melts, it releases ancient diseases and metals like mercury from frozen wildlife carcasses that have been locked in ice for centuries. Yeah, ancient diseases from thawing carcasses. Welcome to the future. And these disasters don't just wreck you physically. Floods, fires, and storms cause trauma, stress, anxiety, and phobias, like a fear of swimming after nearly drowning in a flood. We'll get to that in a second. Now let's talk money, because even if you don't care about the planet, and you should, climate change is going to hit your bank account. This infographic covers every major economic sector affected: energy, mining, forestry, food, housing, tourism, insurance, and manufacturing. Take tourism. Canada is huge for winter tourism, skiing especially. Shorter winter seasons from warming temperatures would absolutely gut that industry. Now the bigger ones. Insurance. Homeowners and businesses are already paying more because extreme weather makes property damage way more likely. If insurance costs keep climbing, people will sell off properties and leave. Economy tanks. Manufacturing. Climate change disrupts the supply of raw materials like timber. Extreme weather delays distribution, causes factory power failures, raises production cost. All of this eats into economic output. This isn't hypothetical. The financial damage is already happening, and it will keep scaling up the longer we wait. Now, the environmental impact, which out of all the perspectives we'll cover today, is arguably the most significant. The first infographic here is basically a visual summary of everything I've said so far, and everything I'm about to say. It proposes something called the butterfly effect, the idea that a tiny change in one part of a system can cause massive, non-linear consequences somewhere else over time. Here's how it plays out with climate change. We burn fossil fuels. Carbon dioxide enters the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide traps heat. Earth warms. That carbon dioxide spreads globally, reaches the Arctic. Glaciers melt, sea levels rise, permanent land loss, infrastructure gone, mass debt, and ultimately chaos. One thing, one chain reaction, the whole world affected. The second infographic focuses on biodiversity loss. Droughts can collapse entire ecosystems. Natural disasters create resource scarcity, which triggers competition between species. Climate change causes habitat fragmentation, range contraction, and hybridization of species that wouldn't normally interact. The web of life gets pulled apart, and once it's gone, it never comes back. And now for something nobody really talks about, the mental health impacts of climate change. When people hear climate change, they think about flooding, wildfires, melting ice caps. They almost never think about depression, anxiety, trauma, even suicide. But they should. The Mental Health Commission of Canada reports that 7.5 million people in Canada experience mental health problems every year, and climate change is a contributing factor, and that number is expected to keep rising. Here's how climate change specifically attacks mental health. It can worsen existing mental illnesses, especially psychosis, which makes a person feel disconnected from reality. Climate change disrupts daily routines, and for someone with psychosis, that disruption can be genuinely dangerous. It can also cause mental illnesses. It disrupts well-being, breaks down community cohesion, that sense of belonging and fitting in, which leads to depression and, in extreme cases, anthropophobia, the fear of other people. It increases suicide ideation, it increases substance abuse, it increases violence and aggression, and human biology actually backs this up. In warmer conditions, people are more easily irritated and aggressive. As temperatures rise, so do those numbers. And there's something called eco-anxiety, or ecological grief. It's the anxiety people feel specifically about what's happening to the Earth. The paranoia of wondering, what is actually going on to this planet, to my future? That's real, and more people are feeling it every year. On a political level, countries with extreme heat is the norm, like many nations in South Asia, have significantly higher rates of depression and mental illness. Those governments have to divert more of their budget toward mental health care, pulling resources from other critical areas. Climate change doesn't just make people sad, it destabilizes governments. Okay, so we've established, yes, climate change is scary. Yes, it affects your lungs, your heart, your wallet, your mind, and the entire planet. So, what do we do about it? 3 things. Simple, real. Anyone can do them. Number 1, plant trees.
You wouldn't hit a woman. That's a woman.
Trees inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. They are literally the reason we can breathe. Every unused piece of land that gets a tree planted on it is a little bit of that carbon dioxide being pulled out of the atmosphere. And deforestation, which accounts for about 10% of global emissions, is literally the opposite of this. When trees are cut down, they either rot or get burned, releasing all the stored carbon right back. So, plant trees. Number 2, adapt. Canada is actually doing some solid work here. Heat alert and response systems are expanding across the country, letting residents know when to stay hydrated and find cool areas. Environment and Climate Change Canada regularly forecast the Air Quality Health Index, or the AQHI, a risk rating for outdoor air quality with health advice attached. They've also implemented Firework, a wildfire smoke prediction system that forecasts fine particulate concentrations across Canada for the next 48 hours. Quebec is going even further. They're testing a telephone alert system specifically for seniors and people with chronic diseases in extreme heat situations. And the result? Fewer hospital and medical appointments. If it goes well, the system could go national, even global. Adaptation costs money, yes, but consider this. Quebec estimates the cost of increased ragweed allergies alone due to climate change is $360 million for the government and $475 million for society as a whole. Extreme heat is projected to cost governments an additional $370 million. Rising Lyme disease cases, another $60 to $95 million in healthcare costs. Adapting early is way cheaper than dealing with the aftermath. Number 3. Greening. Greening is the process of transforming urban environments, houses, hotels, skyscrapers, into more environmentally friendly versions. It can be as simple as keeping plants around your house, or as large scale as growing vines and bushes up the walls of a hotel. Several Canadian cities are already doing this. Green spaces absorb excess rainwater during storms and floods. They cool urban heat islands. They improve air quality. And unlike massive policy changes or billion-dollar government projects, you can do this. Right now. Today. So to answer the inquiry question directly, why should we worry about climate change? Because it is actively destroying our air, our weather, our water, our wildlife, our economy, and our mental health. And the cities we live in are already among the most vulnerable in Canada. And what should we do about it? Simple. 3 steps. Plant, adapt, green. It's not too late, but it's also not something we can keep putting off.